Holler if you hear me, and welcome to this week's edition of Luke Shocks, where the headlines keep on coming, so I keep on coming up to knock them down. Defenseless white people were beaten to a pulp by black thugs in the Cincinnati Jazz Festival recently, and it was all caught on video. Video that then will obviously be used by Spike Lee as a part of his new favorite porn collection. A man posting on social media of his recently acquired surrogate child has now been exposed as a convicted sex offender, and now he's been given the nickname by Cain Velasquez, Proximo, which is Spanish for next. Shards of metal were found in beef from the Ada Valley Meat Company that has now had to recall over 1,000 pounds of their product, even though buying the product is still worth it if the alternative is still veganism. South Park roasted Charlie Kirk in a recent episode, making this their safe edgy satire target number 173482010443322. Virginia Republican City Councilman is now in critical condition after being set on fire as punishment for being a Republican city councilman that close to Washington, D.C. Fitness influencer Joey Swole has now quit the internet over backlash from the woke mafia over him giving a tribute to Hulk Hogan in honor of his death, proving that he's not a real American but a real Portlandian. A whistleblower now has proven that Hillary Clinton approved of the Russia collusion fake investigation to smear the Donald in the wake of his presidential victory, as now everybody in America is checking the backseat of their car and checking their basement and checking the windows of their apartments for any assassins visible nearby. And theoretical comedian Bill Burr has now shrieked for desperate relevancy again after lashing out at Ben Shapiro, proving once again that Ben Shapiro owns the libs with facts and logic. Now all this was Bill Burr on some little glad-handing public appearance to desperately try to go and show how he has completely sold his soul to the Satan that is modern Hollywood, and that basically he is to stand up what South Park was to TV cartoons when it came to somebody who built their whole brand throughout the 2000s and the 90s and then into even the 2010s of being some type of equal opportunity truth teller who's just a loud, tell it like it is type of guy who does not care. He's going to go and scream whatever thoughts he has. Well, it turns out that not only is his Kamala Harris impersonator wife the one who clearly is the one that's actually carrying the balls in their relationship. The fact that if he was such a tell it like it is kind of guy, that if he's all about putting women in their place when they're acting all uppity, well then why is it that his wife gives the finger to the savior of America and his response is to sit there like a bald little bitch? Because apparently his hair and any sense of actually being able to really put a woman in their place when it counts, instead of constantly talking about it in a stand-up act, although with somebody that would be doing all these situations you hear about in a stand-up when out in public, means that at least some of this shit would be caught on tape in some form or another and that it would be going viral, so maybe he's just an abject liar. No better than some Steven Seagal type who keeps on going on about all the accomplishments he did, or even Bill Clinton going on about how great he was as a president. And it turns out all of you are just a bunch of lying pricks. But remember, of course, why wouldn't Bill Burr give away his whole attitude and his whole idea as a stand-up comedian in favor of getting to go and be on Broadway with Nathan Lane? Yeah, being in the 3 millionth production on Broadway of Glengarry Glen Ross, that's truly something worthy of selling your credibility for Hollywood quote-unquote stardom. What's next? Are you gonna play a mailman on an episode of an ABC sitcom, douchebag? But then again, I'm one of those who always looked at Bill Burr as thoroughly generic as all hell, but I'm guessing because of his Boston patois, that was considered something to not make him another one of those milquetoast comedians who, if they're lucky, they're able to get some job as a staff writer on sitcoms or maybe even on some basic cable comedy shows, you know, like Judd Apatow, who was another theoretical comedian who in the very least had some material that led to him going on to be a successful writer for stuff like The Larry Sanders Show and Ben Stiller Show throughout the 90s and crossing over into Hollywood filmmaking. And, well, that's a lot more success that he was able to earn without being a bought-out bitch entirely, unlike Bill Burr. But then again, when you look at Burr, you look at a guy who, well, at least when it comes to somebody like, say, Sam Cedar, who nowadays looks more and more like Bill Burr, but with the problem glasses and the full head of hair, you look at both of them and you think, well, they had to do something to make sure they didn't have a career based off mediocre grinding and stand-up gigs for the rest of their life. So what did they do? Well, you had Sam Cedar selling his soul to Soros for his political bullcrap commentary videos, which never sell anything, never get any real traction, and the best he can do is to constantly cry about how much he wants to debate Steven Crowder, even though, like what would happen if the Donald was left alone in a room with Bill Burr these days, the Steven Crowder simply sneezing in the general direction of a little bitch like Sam Cedar would lead to every bone in his body collapsing and every hair on his head disintegrating and his pathetic little eyes melting out of their sockets to the point where he would look like a really morbid Halloween decoration at the house of one of the guys from Slipknot. When you look at Bill Burr, you can pretty much have the exact same experience by just sitting down at a bar in Boston and let some henpecked guy rant about how much he hates his wife and how he's pissed off at this woman and this thing that makes him angry and that thing he saw in the latest baseball game that made him angry. Basically, Bill Burr is nothing but a really lame Al Bundy impersonation with some HBO-friendly curse words. But because he is an Al Bundy impersonation with none of the actual rhetorically consistent bite to whoever it is he's making fun of, and his actual consistent dislike at the world not being all an act, that's now being exposed as all being shit, because the same guy who would go and lash out at the obvious easy targets, just like fucking South Park, now he might as well be walking around in a Kyle Broflovsky costume, considering that now he's nothing more than just another bought-out soapbox who, after all the years of going after whatever it is that the mainstream allowed him to, now he's sold his soul to the devil, but now that the left is angry at Kamala not being president, he's going completely mask off and is now just hating whoever on the right that Hollywood is hating because they're not them, but they want to be them. In case you are wondering why, a guy like Bill Burr pretty much now these days has no other recourse but to go and lash out at Ben Shapiro because, well, Ben Shapiro actually has an earned audience bigger than him these days and probably ever absolutely will. And, well, that's not my opinion. I know I'm right. So I want to thank you all for watching. Subscribe so my channel hits 10,000 subs these days. And don't forget to become a channel member today and shop in my art store at the second link below where you can buy my art or commission me, or you can support me directly with a donation. So until then, felines, slam it, lick it, suck it, and see you, Space Cowboy.